Hello, everyone. Maneko64 here, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So, can we avoid a Great Depression? That's the title of the live stream. Billy is here, of course. Hopefully, you can hear me well. Let me know. I started a little earlier because there's quite a few people waiting. We've got 33 thumbs up and only 41 people watching. That's weird. Hi, Ben. Mr. B is here. Lord Humongous. Bailout for Billy Airways. Hire me, Mario. No, Billy Airways is not state funded. That's the whole thing. Here's my Billy Airways sweatshirt. I just received it. I received it yesterday. There you go. Just to see. There you go. Billy Airways. There's a Billy mug as well. Billy t-shirt. Billy Airways, that is, of course. Hearing me well, says Pablo. Pabar from Seattle. Jane Reynolds. Hi, Jane. Avi. Nick Green. Hi, Nick. Super Sound, says Thomas Matthiasen. Hi, Peter. Hi, Vajra. Hi, Pad. I haven't researched Albert Pike. I know who he is. He was a 1800s Freemason. I think he wrote along with it was an Italian Freemason. They wrote kind of predicted what was going to happen in the next 100 years. Predicted all the wars. Right. That's what I know about him. Chemtrails in London this evening. No, I didn't notice. Yesterday evening, I actually went out for a walk to the park and back. You can exercise. It was weird because there were other people walking as well, and everyone was trying to not get too close. So it was quite strange. Quebec sucks, says the only people still getting full pay are those parasites in government. Oh yeah, you can bet they're gonna get full pay. They'll probably get a pay rise as well. Billy Airways CEO, he's asleep right now. Billy used to be a compliance officer for Lehman Brothers, and then he moved to Deutsche Bank. So that's why those banks, one collapsed and the other one's in trouble because Billy used to sleep at the job as a compliance officer. Joanna Miller. Hi, Joanna from the U.S. Shantio Johnson from Arizona. Manapia from Dublin. Gold and Bitcoin. Well, I prefer gold to Bitcoin. I do have some Bitcoin, but I think gold has the track record. Bitcoin, very volatile. Gold, much more of a stable store of value. Well, it has been the most stable store of value for thousands of years. Pad, looks like you were right about the Plaza Accord looking at the chart. You got good info. Yeah, the dollar also seems to be weakening quite a bit. We're going to continue to see the euro and the pound rebound. The pound today is like 121. It was down to 114 early this week. They haven't announced anything yet, of course, overtly. Yeah, I saw the jobless claims number, 3.2 million jobless claims. That's huge, of course. Ask Billy if he wants to sell the silver bar and how much. No, Billy doesn't sell his silver unless he needs to. Well, it's a 2-kilo bar. So how many ounces is that? About 65 ounces. How much would we want for that, Billy? About 2,000 pounds. Dow is down 22. Yeah, I made a video this morning about the tech comparing 1929 to now, looking where the Dow could go. And actually, the reason I've done this live stream is that I forgot to talk about more the fundamentals, why I think we will actually have a Great Depression and we're not going to be able to avoid it. I think the same people who were still bullish everything before the stock market started dropping from mid February, they're the same people who think that things are going to be okay, everything is going to recover. I personally think it's not. One of the reasons why, if you look back at the national debt in the U.S. back in 1929, guess what the debt to GDP ratio was then? Well, it was 16%, 1/6. Now it's 109% of GDP. So there's no firepower, not even monetary firepower. Back in the 30s, actually, people say the Fed didn't do anything. Again, that's a fallacy. I've got data here, and I'll give you the link, and you can look at it for yourself. I'll put the link here. Where is it? There we go. So, guess the New York discount rate. Let's see here. On September 1929, that was the top of the Dow. That discount rate was at 6%. By December 19, well, by January, by June, sorry, 1930, the New York Fed had cut that discount rate to 2.5%, and it was down to 2% by, well, actually, it was down to 1.5% by September 31st. September, sorry, 1931. So the New York Fed cut rates from 6% to 1.5%. We're always told that the Fed didn't do enough, but they did, and they still couldn't avoid the Great Depression. The other thing, like I said, debt to GDP was 16% in 1929. Roosevelt raised it all the way to 43% by 1939, which was like a big increase in the debt to GDP. But now we've got zero rates already, and we've got a debt to GDP of 108%. And that's why I don't think it's going to work. Okay. Hopefully you guys, hopefully you ask any questions if you need. Mr. B, it's 32.15. Yeah. Ounces per kilo. That's right. 32.15, 32.2. It's 1.5 exactly, of course. Billy's hungry. He's actually hasn't had his dinner tonight yet, and it's a bit late, but he did have a snack. He had some sausages earlier on, which he usually doesn't have. So he's going to be okay. Yeah, the Fed balance sheet is almost at 5 trillion already. I think, and everywhere around the world, look at the ECB. Their rates are negative. Their balance sheet are huge. The only country that doesn't have that much debt to GDP as a government is Germany. They got 60%. So if anything, Germany could do better than other countries in this, what I think will be a depression. And it will be a lot worse, I think, than in the 1930s. But nowadays, people seem to think that they didn't do anything back then, but they did. Roosevelt increased government spending. The New York Fed cut rates from 6 to 1.5. So anyway, let's see. Greetings from Wasteland, Jetty Mac. Rusco, do interest rates rise alongside hyperinflation? Well, right now, it could be a case. It will eventually do that, but right now, what the central banks are doing, the only saving grace, so to speak, the central banks and the governments in the U.S., UK, and Europe have, is that they're printing money, this QE, to monetize the debt, to keep interest rates low. But I think what will happen is people will see in 6 to 12 months that the economies are not going to pick up, even if this crisis abates. It's not going to pick up. I think it's going to put a lot of smaller, medium-sized firms that won't get enough help out of business. There'll be a lot of unemployment. I was reading, I usually don't buy the papers, but I thought I might buy the paper. I went to the shop down the road to get some milk, and I bought the Times. Usually don't buy that, as I said. I thought, let's go to the sports section. There must not be much in the sports section, but there's a story about Wimbledon, the tennis tournament, that they're thinking about canceling already. And Wimbledon is only in July. So people think, oh yeah, and like I hear Trump saying we should be back up and running by after Easter. But I think he's deluded about that. I think things are going to take a lot longer to get back to normal. And you may think whatever you want about this crisis, but it is what it is. So the fact that Wimbledon might be canceled and it's in July, I think it shows that things are going to be a lot worse. Business section as well of the paper. Some interesting headlines here. One is about Primark. They're a big discount store for clothes. They're saying that they're not going to pay their rent. There's a lot of things that don't bode well. They're actually saying don't be fooled by the FTSE rally. History says it could fall again. I think they're right. Biggest fall in retail sales for a decade, says the CBI. Jobless rate to hit 6%. Oh, I think it's going to hit a lot more than 6%. It looks like the housing market also is frozen, so there's no transactions. Wilson says, thank you for your insights. Can you cover real estate? How prices? Well, yeah, that's funny. I was just talking about that and I saw your question. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any buy and selling of real estate right now. I think real estate is going to take a big hit. I think there's going to be a lot of people that bought to let, people that bought more than one property and have a lot of debt. They're not going to be able to rent it out. And they're going to have the bank or the mortgage provider behind them for they want their payment, and they're going to have to sell. And that's going to drive prices lower. So in the UK, everywhere else, I think house prices are going to drop massively. Of course, they're all going to blame, the blame's going to all be put on this disease, this crisis. But we know that it's just a massive credit bubble that has been blown again since the crisis of 2008. That's really leading to this collapse. The crisis, the health crisis, the beer disease was just the pin that pricked the bubble, the catalyst, so to speak. Silver on eBay, 23 to 30 pounds an ounce. Not surprised. Armada UAV, what do you think about the stock market rally last days? Yeah, it's been in response to the all the stimulus being signed up, the central banks announcing unlimited QE. I spoke about the stock market today in my video this morning. I recommend, if you haven't watched it, to watch it. We dropped 38.4% from the all-time high in the Dow. In 1929, it dropped 44% or 49% in about 10 weeks. This time it dropped 38% in 6 weeks. I think we've reached a short-term bottom. It was around 18,000 in the Dow 200. And what I said is I think we could rebound, maybe up to 24,000, maybe a little more. That would be 50% uh, retracement of the drop that we've had. It could take about 2 to 3 months. I know we've gone very quickly up now to like 22,000, but I don't think it's gonna. I think we're losing a bit of momentum now. But I think a bottom has been put on right now in the short term at 18,000. But if you watch my video from this morning, you'll see that I think we're going to follow the 1930 scenario and eventually make a new low at the end of next year. I calculated around 9,000. Some people are even more bearish. They think the Dow, Charles Nenner thinks it's going to 5,000. One person commented below in my video, he thinks it's going to 900. So maybe I'm being too conservative in terms of drop. We'll have to see, but it doesn't look good. What that will mean is that we're going to have a Great Depression. I don't think any of this stimulus is going to work. For those of you who have just come on, the reason I think that is that we already have too much debt. That is a burden on the economy, and rates are too low. Yeah, they're not. And in 1929, 1930, debt to GDP was only 16% in the US, so they had room to increase spending. And actually, the New York Fed cut the discount rate after the crash from 6% in September 29 to around 1.5% by 1931. So they did have ammunition then, and it wasn't a great period, the Great Depression. So now we've got even more debt, and we have no ammunition, and they're piling on the debt. I saw that there's talk of even more stimulus, and apparently that's one of the reasons why the stock market is up today. Let's see where we are right now. While the Dow is up 850. The other thing that's happening today, I think the Fed lowered the reserve requirement rate for banks to 0, which basically means even more leverage, even more danger. And I think it's the leverage and the derivatives that have triggered this crisis. And we have to go back to September last year and the repo crisis. The repo crisis is all about the big hedge funds being in trouble and having leveraged. Yeah, the derivatives is the Achilles heel of the system. Derivatives, there's a quadrillion dollar worth of notional amount. Adrian Gaines, I think we will get the hyperinflation. Hyperinflation usually happens after a period of depression. I think the hyperinflation might come, maybe it's difficult to say. It will come when people realize that all the debt, all the stimulus will add to nothing as the economies don't recover, and then they start losing faith and confidence in the currency. And will it be later this year or maybe next year? Who knows? Difficult to say. Or it could be after the stock market bottoms. I don't know. But I think we're getting the depression and deflation. Deflation by deflation, I mean the collapse of asset prices, destruction of debt. Right now, the debt is not being destroyed because the Fed has come in, all the central banks have come in, stepped in, and they're buying the debt and the paper assets. MMNO asks, Q, is that still a thing? I've never followed Q, but I listened to Greg Menerino the other day, and he actually said that Donald Trump praised the Federal Reserve for what they're doing. I saw a picture of Mnuchin the day he got the deal through in Congress. He was walking out of Congress in the hallway, and he looks really proud. because he lumbered Americans with another 2 trillion in debt. So I think people who think Trump are going to save them are still got their heads in the sand. Trump is part of the system, really. I think, in my opinion, I did think he was the real deal back when he was campaigning, but he's been a disappointment, I would say. If he was a real patriot, he would sign an executive order, basically uh, closing down the Federal Reserve, nationalizing it, and closing down Wall Street and sorting the monetary system out. But he hasn't. He's just allowed the bankers to lumber more and more debt onto the public. So how can that make America great again? I can't see it. Sorry. I'm sure some of you are Trump supporters, but that's the way I see it. 5-year target for gold. To get to have as many ounces and grams as possible. That's my target for gold. That's how you need to think. You need to think of how many ounces or grams of gold and silver you have. That's my target. And my target as well is to keep my reserves, not to get rid of them. I know you're asking about the price in Federal Reserve notes, but I think we need to ignore that now. It's irrelevant. You need to hold on to your physical. I think Robert Kiyosaki, he was on Kitco yesterday. Jim Rickards, they're working together on a book. That's the way they think as well. You need to think of gold and silver. You need to think of the amount of ounces or grams or even tons if you're wealthy enough to have tons. Do you recommend paying off mortgage or should I hold on? If you can get out of that, get out of that, because if you have a mortgage or debt, you're going to be a slave to the central bankers and the state because they're going to own everything. Do you really want to be beholden to these people? It's more a matter of principle for me. You might want to keep it and leverage yourself, but I don't. Yes, 00RPHB. I agree with you. Sorry if I don't see all the questions. We've got almost 500 people here, which is good. The downside is that I can't see all your questions. I'll try my best. Pablo Pina, what do you think about Exchange Stabilization Fund and where they use? They use the fund. It's only the president and the treasury secretary that have access to that fund. So they probably use it to intervene in the markets. They buy stocks, and their broker, so to speak, is J.P. Morgan. So J.P. Morgan, when the dealer for the ESF sees the line ringing from the Treasury, everyone in the dealing room sees that line ringing. They start buying before they buy for the U.S. Treasury. Have you ever wondered why J.P. Morgan is such the biggest bank in the world, right? Mark W. Trump is a genuine fraud. Gold is the only money you can trust. Yeah, silver as well, I think, in my opinion. Silver, gold and silver. New laws will confiscate gold and wealth. Well, they might. They might confiscate gold and wealth, but it's not a reason not to try to protect yourself. If they're going to confiscate everything, I guess we can't do anything about it, but it's still the best thing to have. Cardinal sin. The chances of a hyperinflation are increasing more and more. The more the central bankers monetize government debt with money created out of thin air, the bigger the chance of hyperinflation. Of course, they'll tell you that there won't be hyperinflation. The excuse they use is that they'll say that they did it after the crisis of '08 and nothing happened. But hyperinflation is not a linear event. It's like a crisis of confidence in the currency. You're gonna have to give me a second. Billy, he wants to go out. He's gonna have 1 second. Yeah, he wants to go out. Come on, out you go. I'm back. Billy wanted to go out in the garden, so I had to let him out. I've left the door open. Is the sound okay? Let me know. Scrapper says people are already stealing from food shops. Yeah, I think that's a problem now because there was a research a few years ago, or maybe a couple of years ago, saying that I think the majority of Americans didn't have $500 savings. That if they lost their job, they couldn't survive. And I would say it's the same thing for people in the UK. The only reason I don't know is because they really didn't do the same research. Hi, full of hope. Nice to see you here. Billy comes first. Yeah, the annoying thing is with this lockdown, they've even closed golf courses, everything now. Is that the weather's gotten so good now? It's going to be sunny and relatively warm for the next 2 weeks. So the lockdown in the UK will last up until the 13th of April. They might extend that. Who knows? Jules Davies Hines, do you think it is necessary to move from populated towns into the country for safety at this time? Well, I think it's a little late right now because you're probably going to find it very difficult to sell your property in the city, in the big towns, and move to the country. So I guess it's a little bit like the horses have left, gone out of the barn already, so to speak. But when things normalize, you might want to do it. Yeah, because this kind of thing, I was talking to my wife today because I was thinking, I think a lot. I was thinking this could be just a drill, a warm up for something even bigger in the future. They're just testing us. So, yeah, it could be a thing to do. But I guess you're going to have to wait until things normalize for now, Jules. Break-ins have quadrupled in Vancouver. Yeah, around where I live in the last year or two, there have been quite a few break-ins as well. Right now, I don't think there is much because the streets are empty. Crazy golf in the garden. Yeah, I chipped in the garden a little bit yesterday with Billy. Billy likes to pick the balls up. But today I just did a few swings just to exercise a little bit. Billy's outside barking, if you can hear it. Private vaults, safe. Yeah, I would say they're safer than the banks, but yeah, they're never, there is a counterparty risk. I won't lie. Yeah, the 3 month, 1 month, and 3 month bills are negative. Right now, the 1 month is minus 6.6 basis points. That's the 1 month, sorry, and the 3 month right now is minus 3 basis points. So that's the only way they will be able to keep Uncle Sam running is through negative interest rates. And why are rates going negative? Well, because the Federal Reserve has promised to buy unlimited amount of treasuries. When you buy treasuries, which are the Uncle Sam's debt, you raise the price and the yield goes down. So and then you get all the speculators front running the Fed, and it drives them even lower, the yields, and the price is even higher. but it's a disaster waiting to happen, in my opinion. Pablo Pina, how can Trump play out options to avoid the Great Depression? I don't think he can avoid a Great Depression. I'm sorry, I don't think he can. It's also a matter of, how can I say, psychology, sentiment of the public. Even, let's say, in 6 weeks' time, this virus goes away and everything's fine. I think it will be very hard to get back up and running again. It's going to be hard. And I don't think it's going to be 6 weeks. I think it's going to be longer. There's going to be the thing markets and businesses hate is uncertainty. I think, yes, they're trying to do a lot to help businesses stay afloat, but the government doesn't have any wealth. They have to take it from the private sector to help the private sector. So it doesn't make any sense. I don't think it's going to work. I don't want to be a Cassandra or a doomsayer. I'm just looking at the reality. Maybe I could say, oh no, everything's going to be great. Everything is going to work out. I probably would if the debt to GDP ratio was like at 30% for the government, if consumers didn't have that much debt, then I would say, yeah, things are going to pick up if we had a health crisis like we're having now. Roy James, I don't know how Deutsche Bank is handling the crisis. They're probably doing better now because they're getting support from the central banks. All right. Someone here is 12 and the gold bug. I will say hi to Billy from you, M. La Oreos Scrivener. Yeah, my alarm is going off. That's the Billy alarm. My 70, I think, is going to be worse than Japan because when Japan had their collapse in 89, 1990, the rest of the world was doing quite well. Now the whole world is doing badly. I read something. Let me get the paper again. I read something that was quite interesting in the Times. I usually don't buy the Times of London. And I was reading here, hopes rise for virus test, right? There you go. And I'm going to read something they said in this article. And where is it? Oh, yeah, here it is. The scientist whose models precipitated the tougher measures imposed last week said that the death toll could end up being substantially lower than 20,000, with most of the fatalities among those who would have died this year anyway. So here's the scientist who decided to give the government the advice to lock everything down. He's saying that the deaths are not going to be that they're going to be substantially lower than 20,000, and there are people that would have died anyway. So it's weird. And the other day as well, I saw on a Facebook page that I follow, someone put up something from the government website here in the UK, status of COVID-19, and it says, as of March 19th, 2020, COVID-19 is no longer considered to be a high consequence infectious disease, HCID, in the UK. So that's a bit puzzling. You've got the scientist who advised the government to lock down, saying there won't be that many deaths. There won't be more deaths than usual. and then you've got the government saying that it's not a dangerous or highly infectious disease. I'll give you the page if you don't believe me. I'll give you the link here so you can look at it from the government. So you kind of wonder what's going on. Really, there you go. That's the page there. No, Jeff, all the golf courses have been closed. They should be closed here in the UK. Last time I played was on Sunday, and then I think on Monday they closed everything down. I haven't read Ray Dalio's debt crisis template. One thing I would say about Ray Dalio, one of the hedge funds that is in real trouble is his hedge fund. I think he's one of the reasons for the repo crisis at Bridgewater Associates. There are other funds like Millennium and Citadel. They've been in trouble, but it looks like the Fed is kind of bailed them out for now. Yan, the thing is, right now, the way they're creating the money is through borrowing. So the Federal Reserve, of course, creates its money from the keyboard, right? Let's say it's going to buy 60 billion of treasuries, but in order to buy those, the Treasury has to issue the debt. So the Federal Reserve doesn't create the money and give it straight to people. They make the government borrow it. I agree with you. They could stop. They could go directly give it to the public, but they're private bankers. They're not going to give you people money. They're going to make you borrow. So that's why they don't do that yet. Well, I don't think they'll do it, but their balance sheet is getting bigger and bigger, and I think people are going to lose confidence in it. And I don't think the public can carry the debt for that much longer. I was doing a calculation today, and I tweeted it out. I said, and I think it's realistic to think that we could see U.S. GDP shrink by 5% in the next 12 months. The national debt right now is almost 24 trillion. I think we can say it's going to be at 25 trillion. So I did the calculation. If that were to happen, the debt to GDP would be at 121%. Right now we're at 109. So I think it will get a lot worse. And I'm being conservative with those numbers. When will people be able to buy physical metals again? Well, when price gets high enough, where people who are holding the metal decide to sell some of it. Maybe when this crisis is over, things will move a little easier. But there's still some dealers who have the metal. One of my viewers yesterday from Holland, I made a video yesterday about ABN AMRO. They're defaulting on their promises to pay in gold. He said he couldn't get any gold or silver in Holland, so he dealt with gold investments here in the UK with my promo code MONERO64. So I think they still have some goldinvestments.co.uk, so you can give them a try. BC Joey, you're welcome. Take care. Lord Humongous, yeah, the IRS was created right around when the Fed was created. You do need, if you're going to have a central bank that creates, that lends money out of thin air to the Treasury, you need to have taxpayers. That's the other problem as well. The currency could lose, people could lose faith in the currency because there is no tax receipts. And people are going to twig onto it. The only reason that the government is being able to keep the borrowing is because it's creating money out of nothing, or the Fed's creating money out of nothing to buy it. So if the tax base gets eviscerated, it could mean the collapse of the Federal Reserve note eventually. And that would be a good thing, in my opinion. V. Bjorn Gritton, can they keep on silver mining with prices so low? No, they probably some of the companies will go out of business, but then the prices of silver will have to go higher because there will be less supply. There should normally go higher, and then people will come back. The mines will reopen, and now there's the other problem as well. The crisis that we're having. I saw that Hecla Mining headline yesterday. They closed one of their mines. How do you check that the gold and silver you buy is genuine? Well, you make sure you deal with a reputable dealer. Um, there are, I think, apps that you can use. I was talking to Oliver Temple from Gold Investments. Some of the clients that go there, they have apps on their phone that you can actually check if it's gold or silver. You should Google that or try to find that. So there you go. One thing about gold and silver, they're not magnetic. So the best test, first test is with a magnet. It shouldn't stick, shouldn't get stuck to gold and silver. But generally, yeah, you need to deal with a dealer that's been in business for a long time and that has a reputation. Philip Simonek, do you think this is a total takeover by the banking Zionist cabal? Yeah, I think it is. It's the end game of the New World Order. I think it is. They're going to own a lot already. We can see already that the top 1% already own almost everything, and if you add the other 9%, the top 10%, they own like I think 2/3 of the wealth. Vention is here. Micto, big fan of Bitcoin. Yeah, I know. Vention is a big fan of Bitcoin. I think he's got some silver too. SC. Yeah, I think that is possible. Or even if they didn't, they're using it to. They're not wasting. They're not letting the crisis go to waste. Uh, they could be exaggerating it as well, but it's difficult to say. It would only be speculation. The other thing as well, yeah, it is a huge cover for the financial collapse that we're having. Of course, they're saying the markets are collapsing because of the virus, but I think they're using this crisis as an excuse to allow things to collapse because they know they can't keep going. They need to bail out the hedge funds and the banks and the governments. So, and if we look back towards the end of last year, everything was slowing down. China had the slowest growth since 1990, I think. Germany was zero growth. US GDP was around 2%, even though they were running 5% deficits. The deficits now are going to be double digit, which is ridiculous. Um, there have been lootings in the stores of Veracruz, Mexico. Not surprising. It could happen here. Stagflation, velocity. I think inflation, rising prices is more. Yeah, it could. I guess there's not that much velocity right now because the only thing people are buying is probably food and medicine. They're not buying holidays. They're not going to the cinema. They're not going to watch sports. So yeah, velocity is going to decrease. But hyperinflation, uh, Yeah, people lose confidence in the currency. They try to get rid of it. They could still do it now through other means, of course, but I think it's going to take a while. Will banks be nationalized again? I think they will. They will. Yeah, I saw ABN AMRO lost also 200 million. One of their clients had a big margin call on the CME, and they're partly owned by the Dutch government. Here in the UK, RBS is two-thirds owned by the government. I think in France, the government took over most of Air France now as well. But yeah, they're working together with the central banks, of course. It's like a melding of the state and the private banks, right? So I guess you could call it fascism or communism. I think they're just as bad, but it could be more like communism because you've got the state and private bankers owning everything. So yeah, there's no private property really. There is some, but the majority of people don't have any property. They're renting. Will there be digital currency in the EU as well? Probably, probably. They're going to use probably the blockchain to keep track of everyone's transactions and who's doing what. But it's not going to be open source, of course, like Bitcoin and other real cryptocurrencies. Maybe England will gain independence after the disaster. I'm not too sure about that. The same thing's happening here that they're doing in the US, all the bailouts or the money printing. People are not going to be owning too much here. It's just going to be the very top. It's going to be, I guess, what you can call it is like what you had in the Middle Ages. What was it? Feudalism. That's we're going back to feudalism. A few lords in charge. Hopefully, it won't be for that long. Some people think we're going through, and here I'm getting into changing the subject. I'm not saying I agree 100%, but I give it some chance. Some people think this is like the Great Tribulation, and it won't last forever, and that things will improve after a while. Who knows? But right now we're under the thumb of the beast, and the beast is the New World Order, right? Mr. B says, smash the like buttons. 513 followers. That's pretty good for my live streams. We are going around to help all those old men on that list. Instead of having a child to come over and service them, they will get an execution instead. Well, I think the financial system is blowing apart and they're trying to save it, Pablo. I don't think they'd be able to save it if there wasn't a crisis. They wouldn't have an excuse, a good excuse to do it. But I don't think it will succeed. Reset, I think, has been happening since the year 2000. The only thing the system can reset against to balance the system is gold, and the gold silver ratio was at 40. Sorry, the Dow gold ratio was around 42 in 2000. Recently, we dropped back to 12. So I think when we get to 1-to-1, or you might even be able to buy more than one Dow eventually with 1 ounce of gold, then I think we'll have had the reset. Is Mario the Messiah? No, 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 I don't claim to be the Messiah. Uh, yeah, I don't. Will Edwards, yeah, that's a worry. Forced vaccinations. I have a feeling they might use this crisis to say to people, if you want to go abroad, if you want to travel overseas, you're going to have a vaccine. Um, and I think that's horrible. Um, it's a tough situation because, and they might force you to have a vaccine even for other things. They might even say you can't have a driver's license if you don't have a vaccine, or you can't use the health services if you don't have a vaccine. So let's hope it won't be mandatory. Ballroom of Mars. No, I have not been a guest of on Fault Lines Radio. I haven't heard of them actually, but I haven't been. Yeah, I haven't been a guest. Yeah, Lord Humongous. All fiat returns to an intrinsic value of 0. Alan Meyer, will Trump save the West? No, Trump is bringing down the West. He's the guy who finishes the wrecking of the West. How can you be saving the West by indebting the West even more? Just the other day, they indebted the West by another $2 trillion. So, no, he's not saving the West. He'd be saving the West if he, as I said earlier in the live stream, if he signed an executive order to abolish the Federal Reserve, to nationalize it, and liquidate the Federal Reserve and go back to constitutional money, then he would be saving the West. Price of oil? Well, not sure. Well, the price of oil, yeah, I think the key level was 40. When we broke that, we went almost straight down to 20. So the only thing I can say now is that we need to go back above 40. So yeah, as long as and I think it's a reflection. The low price of oil is a reflection that we're going to have a depression, because there's going to be a lot less economic activity. Greg says it would take 36,000 years to count to 1 trillion. There you go. The Fed can create that in a second on its keyboard. That's why it will go to 0. Victoria Martian, save us, Billy. Yeah, Billy, I got my Billy Airways sweatshirt from my Teespring store. It's there. There are T-shirts, there are mugs. There's even baby onesies with Billy Airways. If any of you have babies or grandchildren, you could buy a baby onesie with Billy Airways on it. Yeah, I used to listen to X22 Report, but I haven't for the last, at least 12 months. It's it's like there's always something coming up. He's always saying, "Oh, this is it. The economy is going to be safe." That guy is, I don't know what he's about. Yeah, PT. I think the housing market is gonna take a big hit everywhere around the world. Yeah, you can get a Billy Airways hoodie. I think there is a hoodie, the Teespring store. Well, where's oil right now? Well, right now I think it's stuck between 20 and 30, in my opinion. 20 is a key support. If it breaks 20, then that's really bad news for everything, for the whole world economy. And that's possible, I think. The Watcher, Mario, trust the plan. Q. Yeah. Yeah, Graham. Actually, I think the day that crude oil dropped a lot down to like 42, I bought a little bit because I think it dropped 8% in the day. That was the day uh, OPEC didn't get Putin's help, and I thought, oh, it was dropped 8%. I'm going to buy one, but luckily I put a stop because if I hadn't put a stop there, I would have lost a bit of money. So yeah, that was a key level there, 42.40. It's funny because even about 15, 17 years ago, that was a key level, 40. Mnuchin, funny money, yeah. Yeah, Billy is Q. uh, Marcos Diego, awesome interview with Jim Rickards. Thank you. Yeah, Jim Rickards is a lot of people, I know he's consulted for the intelligence community and Department of Defense, but I think you read his books, he's he's not what you think. And I saw a good interview yesterday of Robert Kiyosaki with Kitco, with Daniela. And I'm trying to, I went to his website, Robert Kiyosaki, and I requested an interview. Let's see if he accepts it. Hopefully, he'll be on Monaco 64, maybe not. Robert Kiyosaki, and he's writing a book along with Jim Rickards. Benevolence substrate, or percentage of a person's wealth should be in precious metals. ETFs are not okay. Don't touch ETFs. Only physical. Well, your question is like asking how much should I save? That's up to you because precious metals, they're basically money. So if you're holding precious metals, it means you're saving. Some people like to save more than others, so I can't tell you. Jim Cramer, yeah, Jim Cramer is a comedian, I think. My daughter, when we went to Disney World, I think it was 2005, and we used to watch Mad Money. And my daughter wasn't into markets, but she liked to watch it because he was like a comedian. So yeah, he's good for kids to watch. It's a bit of fun. Do you think gold and silver jewelry is a good alternative to fiat? Yeah, even though you pay more than bullion, of course, for jewelry. But it's the Indians, they buy a lot of. If you find an Indian shop, jewelry shop, you might be able to get jewelry almost at the spot price of gold. And the Indians, they do 22 karat jewelry. All right, I'll take a few more questions. We're coming up to the hour mark. A few more questions, and then we'll call it a day. Derek Barwise, in a time of deflation, surely gold and silver will suffer. No, actually, during the Great Depression, uh, the gold miners, home stake mining was up 500%. It's actually probably the best time to have gold is in a deflation. What do you think will happen to Australian house prices? Uh, they will go down as well. Yeah, and they've had a big bubble. They won't escape, and especially with the dependence on China and the rest of Asia, they will go down too. I think. Yeah, they will go down. Ballroom of Mars. Yeah, the lower fuel prices should help all miners, not only silver. The Watcher, no, I wouldn't. I don't like doing that because there's a lot of costs involved. You know, when you sell the gold and buy the silver. So all I do really is maybe buy more silver, like I did last week. I bought some silver Britannias, but I won't swap out of one to the other. Okay. Thank you, No. Thank you, everyone else. Thank you for being here and participating. And I'll talk to you later. Take care, everyone.